Sawadee-kap tuka, and welcome to Chiang Mai, Thailand. Hey, this video is for me 3 years ago because maybe you're at now where I was at then, and this can be helpful for you. Are you sitting in your home country and just getting fed up? I mean, it's getting more and more difficult to live a quality, happy life in our home countries. And although I'm from America, this isn't just for people from America. I think everything I'm going to talk about is true for Canada, the UK, Australia. I mean, real estate prices are outrageous, whether you're renting or you're buying. Just the overall cost of living is just crazy. Our politicians don't seem to give a damn about us, to be blunt, just themselves. Crime is outrageous, especially here in America with all these crazy mass shootings. And there's just a sense of political polarization that didn't exist even 10 years ago. So what do you do about it? I mean, if you're thinking about moving to another country, how do you make the first step? I mean, what should you be thinking about? What plans do you have to make in advance? Well, that's what this video is all about. So what is it you want? Are you like me? I wanted, number one, a lower cost of living. I wanted to live well for less. I wanted to feel safe walking the streets at night. I didn't want any taxation problems by living in another country. I wanted great weather. I wanted great food. I know that's subjective. It's different for all of us. And I wanted great quality health care. So for me, I chose Thailand. Now, that might not be the right choice for you, and I don't want this video to be just about people interested in Thailand, because what I'm going to talk about is really true for a lot of places in the world. In fact, I'm going to talk about a lot of countries in different parts of the world, not just Southeast Asia. So let's dive into it and start with location. And as I do this video, I'm going to go really fast. I'm going to cover a lot of topics, so bear in mind, this is kind of a beginner video for people just getting that little itch in their mind that they want to be living overseas. If I covered all the topics I'm going to cover in detail, this video would be like 15 hours long. So I'm going to give you a couple resources as we talk. I'm going to direct you to a few videos, but mainly I just want to kind of put you in the right direction and tell you things that you should be kind of thinking about. All right, let's get started. So for me, I chose Thailand. I wanted a really low cost of living. I wanted great food. And I've got to tell you, I go out literally 3 meals a day. And the average cost for most of the meals, and this is because I like Thai food, it costs more if I was going to Western restaurants. But I can get a bowl of pad Thai in my very favorite restaurant for like 60 baht. I can get some cow soy for 50 or 60 baht. I mean, the food is so cheap, you don't even have to think about really the cost of going out. Whereas in the West, I mean, 2 people go out for lunch, and what does it cost you with tax and tip and 50 bucks? I mean, you have to plan for it. I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted good weather. For me, that means warm to hot weather. I wanted to feel really safe. And I tell you, even going to big cities like Bangkok here in Thailand, I have never felt threatened once in my life, with the exception, I will admit, if you live in Southeast Asia, the roads and the drivers are kind of crazy. So when I talk about safety, I'm excluding that one area. But I also wanted no taxation issues, and I wanted to have pretty much easy visas. And most of what I'm talking about is not just true in Thailand. It's certainly true in many countries in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia for sure. And also in South America. I mean, there's some great countries in Central and South America, like Ecuador, Uruguay. People don't talk about Uruguay, but it is a fantastic location. Panama, Costa Rica. And Europe can be surprisingly affordable compared to the West. I mean, you can buy some really nice real estate for literally about 10% of what it would cost in my home state of Southern California. And I'm even going to put some really quick examples on the screen so you can see for yourself what I mean. Some of these countries, as we'll talk about, even give you a path to qualifying for their local medical care, as well as sometimes even citizenship where you can get a second passport. So here's what I recommend that you do, because you've got to start somewhere. So do your research, whether it's on Google or ChatGPT, certainly YouTube, and narrow it down to a couple countries. And you've really got to travel there. I mean, you can't avoid going there and having your feet on the ground and really just getting a feel for a country. And I encourage you, because this is potentially a life-changing decision that you're making, not to rush into this decision. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they go on vacation for a week or 2 weeks and they say this place is great. And then when they move there, they realize things that they would have realized had they stayed there longer. So a key thing that you need to do is hopefully stay at least a couple months, ideally visit over a couple different seasons, and do your best to kind of live like you would if you were actually a resident there. In other words, don't be in hotel mode, but actually maybe rent an Airbnb, rent a condo, see what it's like to go to the local grocery stores and markets to buy your food and cook it at home. If you like to do certain things like go to the gym, well, go to a gym in that country, in that city, and see how it feels. If you like sports like tennis or pickleball or whatever it might be, find those sports, start doing them, meet people that you would interact with, and see if you would enjoy that lifestyle. It's really a key thing to do. I did a video about a year ago, and it talked about the 5 biggest mistakes that people make when they go overseas, why they don't succeed, why they fail. And it was specifically about Thailand, but it really applies to almost anywhere in the world. So I don't want you to leave right now, but at the end of this video, you can get the link in either the description or in the first comment. I'll also leave it at the very end of this video. And I encourage you to watch it because it'll really give you some nice tips. So when you do travel overseas and you want to retire there and live there the rest of your life, you're going to be successful. My second goal is, this video has about like 600,000 something views, and I really wanted to get to 1 million. So help me get there. How about home prices? Whether you're renting, you're buying, whether it's a house or a condo. And the rents for these places are quite often very, very inexpensive. In Southeast Asia, a nice basic 1-bedroom condominium is typically going to go for about like the equivalent of $400 US. I did a video on my condo in Thailand, which I would put in the luxury category. It's 70-something square meters. Absolutely incredible view, great facilities, swimming pool, gym, all that kind of stuff. Just a beautiful, beautiful place in the best part of Chiang Mai, where I live in Thailand. So check that out, because even if you're living in a different part of Thailand or even a different part of Southeast Asia, the condo prices are pretty much about the same. Now, mine was in the luxury category, so that was about $750, $800 US. But that same condo with that same view in my home state of California would probably cost me about like $3,000, I would guess. And here's the thing that people quite often don't think about. People think when you go overseas, you either have to rent, or if you can buy property, you have to pay cash. And that is true in some countries, but there's a lot of countries where you can get a mortgage just like you can in America. You can get a mortgage from local banks as a foreigner. Now, quite often in some of these countries, I'm going to use Italy and Spain as an example, beautiful countries, incredibly low real estate prices, and the mortgage rates are actually lower than they are in the United States. I think in the US right now we're at 6.2 or something. And I forget if it's Italy or Spain. I think they're in the 4 range. So that saves you a lot of money. And typically the down payment required is about 30%. But if your unit is costing you under $100,000, that might be a $20,000, $25,000 down payment. And your monthly payment is going to be in the low hundreds. Now, another issue is feeling safe from crime. And I'll give you a bunch of statistics here that kind of show where a lot of the countries I'm going to be talking about, where they rank. And perhaps not surprisingly, a lot of them are safer than the United States. The United States really has a pretty bad crime rate. But statistics can always be a little bit manipulated. What really counts is just the feeling that you get, because we all innately have kind of a feeling of when we feel at risk and when we feel safe. So when you visit the various cities that you might be considering, just ask yourself, I mean, are you feeling safe? Do you feel threatened? Are you encountering people that make you feel uncomfortable. As I mentioned before, in Thailand, whether it's in Chiang Mai, which is, a big but not a huge city, or Bangkok, which is a giant metropolis, I always feel safe. I never feel threatened. The kind of things that I worry about in the United States, drive-by shootings and all these crazy kind of things, I just don't think about there. So you'd be surprised how a lot of these countries that might have the reputation as kind of a developing country or even a third world country are safer than the United States. Let's talk about a really big issue, and that's the quality of healthcare. People that have never left their home countries, American, Canadians are really guilty of this. They always think they've got the best healthcare in the world. Well, big surprise, you don't. I can say this from personal experience, having gone to the hospital twice in Thailand, thankfully for kind of minor things. But the care was immediate. It was fluent English doctors. It was incredibly affordable. I'm talking about 90% less than I would have paid in the United States. And it was prompt. I went to an emergency room and I was seen within about 15 minutes. And when I had an MRI done and an X-ray, I didn't have to be told, like in the West, it's always like, well, come back in a week, we'll tell you the results. They walk you right back to the doctor with your X-rays and your scans in hand, and they tell you the results right then, even for a regular doctor's appointment. So a lot of the stuff that that we say, hey, we've got the greatest medical care in the world in America, we're not even close. But sometimes in some of these cities, they don't have the best hospitals. So if you're going to a country like Thailand or Malaysia or Cambodia or Vietnam, if you're in a smaller city, you may only have kind of, a regional hospital that can't provide all the services that you might need. So sometimes you might be prepared to have to go to a large city nearby. That brings up the issue of insurance, and this is a big one, because as we get older, we're seniors. I'm 69 years old. We worry about pre-existing conditions and can we qualify for new insurance and all those kinds of things. So let me first talk about insurance in the short range. And by that I mean you're still in the scouting stage. You're visiting different countries, you're deciding where to go, you're going to be gone for 2 or 3 months. I did a video that will give you the best insurance plan you will ever find. Now, unfortunately, this is pretty much limited to Americans because different companies are, just licensed in certain countries. But if you're an American, watch this video because it'll give you a plan that for less than $100, it will give you about 3 months of coverage, all your pre-existing conditions covered. And when I say, under 100, that's even if you're like 65 plus. It's an incredible plan, no deductible. Check it out, it'll really help you. But what about long-term insurance? And of course you can buy health insurance overseas. But one of the problems you will face is that pre-existing conditions may not be covered. So that's the bad news. The good news is the insurance premiums you're going to pay are tiny compared to what we pay in America. That's because the cost of healthcare itself is about 80 to 90% less in many situations. So obviously the premium is going to be a lot less. But here's an option even better that people never seem to think about. There's a lot of countries out there that once you get permanent residency, now I'm not saying you have to be a citizen, just permanent residency, which sometimes can be accomplished in months, you can qualify, just like the local citizens do, for full health coverage. Now, it might not be completely free, but it's kind of like paying into our Social Security plan, where you pay something monthly to be eligible for their local, their state national insurance. And quite often these premiums are quite low. In some countries it's like $50 US. For some it might be as high as $200. I'm going to put a chart up and give you a few countries you might want to look into that give this as a terrific benefit. And let's talk about saving money living in another country. For me, my monthly nut, just for my house, and I lived in Southern California, which admittedly is not a cheap area, but for my mortgage, for my property tax, for my homeowner insurance, for my gardener, because I was out of the country a lot, I had to have a gardener, my utilities, my water, all that kind of stuff came to about $5,000 a month. That's $60,000 a year just for my housing. And another thing people don't think about when you think about how much am I going to save when I live overseas is your car. I mean, all the money you put into your car and your insurance. Well, in a lot of these countries where you're considering moving to, you don't need a car. I mean, America, you can't survive without a car. We don't have mass transportation unless you live in New York City, maybe with subways or something like that. But in most Asian countries, there's either good local transportation, or I get by just fine with my little motor scooter or using Grab or Bolt. Those are rideshare programs like Uber. The difference is in Thailand and throughout Southeast Asia, they cost about 80% less. All right, I've been talking about a lot of stuff kind of generally, just kind of conceptual things to think about. But now I want to talk about actual specific things that you're going to want to be doing or considering doing when you move overseas. And a lot of this you need to kind of do in advance. So one of them is you're going to want to get a bank account in the country that you're moving to as soon as you can. So you can do that in your advance trip if you know you're going to go back. Almost every country will let you open a bank account as a foreigner. Now, sadly, my own country here in Thailand is presently anyway being kind of difficult on that. You've got to show a long-term visa. You can't open it with just a tourist visa. But you're going to need a bank account in your new home country. Now, what about your bank account in your home country? You definitely want to keep it. You're still going to be needing it for different things, especially if your Social Security check is deposited to your bank account. So keep your US or your home country bank account. But one issue you might run into is if you're giving up your home country address, your local bank is probably going to want a local address and they may not accept a P.O. box. So you might want to be talking to a trusted friend or a relative that you can use their address. Or there's some mail services that have an address that look like they're actually a P.O. box, but they let you use their mailing address so it looks like a physical address. Another thing to think about is changing your home state, because when you move out of the country, at least if you're an American, you're still going to owe your US taxes even if you're living overseas. Now, if your income is generated from another country employer, well, then you get an exemption. Most of you are going to be retired at that point, or you might be working remotely but still for a US employer, so you're going to be paying US tax. So you can't really avoid the federal tax, but you might be able to avoid the state tax. You probably live in a state that's presently charging you state income tax. My home state of California, it's a lot of money. So you might want to change your residence before you move out of the country to a state that does not charge state income tax. There's quite a few of them. The main one people always refer to is Florida, but there's a lot of states that do that. So that might mean contacting someone in one of those states that you know, or setting up a P.O. box type address that you can use. There's a lot of steps to do this effectively. In some states, you might want to get a driver's license in that state, open a bank account in that state, show legitimacy that you are, quote, a resident of that state, even if you're not physically there. Residency is kind of a state of mind with some legal concepts, but that's something to explore further. Now, this kind of brings up your Social Security check. Probably right now it goes directly into your bank account. Well, here's some really good news. There's a whole bunch of countries, I'll put up the list, that have a direct deposit agreement with the United States. So you can give them your foreign bank and there's no financial penalty for them to deposit the money directly into your foreign bank account. But even if your country isn't on the list, you can use a service called Wise. Go to wise.com and learn about it. It's a very trusted resource, and basically it's a portal to transfer your money. It's like an online bank, very, very trusted and reliable. You deposit your money there. You then transfer your money from wherever you want it to go. It's a lot faster, a lot cheaper than old-fashioned wire transfers like you used to do at your bank. I think I pay less than 1% for most transfers, and it's basically instant. I love using Wise. Now, I mentioned a minute ago about perhaps moving to another state to avoid state income tax. Well, what about federal tax and the tax of the country you're going to? You're still going to be paying federal tax on your US income. However, what about the foreign country? Are you going to owe tax there? Well, that's a big deal because none of us want to pay double taxation. And that varies country by country. So you need to look into that. Most countries are like Thailand, where I'm at. Thailand technically does charge foreigners tax on their foreign income, but there's a treaty with the United States and many countries where they won't tax the same income twice. So if I've paid tax on my American income, they're not going to tax it again in Thailand. The only exception would be is if I'm not taxed on something in America, but I would be taxed in Thailand. That's actually pretty rare. So for me, I don't owe any tax in Thailand, but there is the inconvenience of having to file a tax return every year, which I think is advisable, even if you're not owing tax. Another thing I advise you to do is keep your home country cell number. And the reason for that is even if you're living overseas, you're still going to be dealing with US banks, US businesses, and just think how often when you do business, they say, we're going to send you, a 5-digit text to your cell phone, and you've got to put that in to authenticate who you are. I hate that, but they do that all the time now. Well, with some places you can convert that authentication to email, but with some you can't. So you want to keep a US number that will still work. So what do? You don't want to keep paying, Verizon $50 or $60 a month to keep it active. Well, you can do what's called porting your number. And you keep your number, but you take it with you to another provider. And you can go, it doesn't cost you anything, by the way. You take that ported number and you register it with, let's say, GoogleVoice, or there's a few companies that do it. And now that number will work basically anywhere in the world. Now, sometimes I will alert you that with some banks, they somehow kind of notice that this is a ported number, and it doesn't always work when they send you a code. But in most instances, it works, and it's still a great way to stay in contact with your friends and your family. Now, on that same subject, let me give you a much better way to stay in contact with friends and family in your home country as well as in your new country. Forget about using your phone. I mean, phones are kind of passé. I don't think I use my phone for anything but texting and doing what we call QR scanning here in Thailand, how we do our banking and our purchases, really convenient. Again, like America's way behind the times compared to some of these other countries. So what you should be doing is getting one of the apps that will give you free phone calls, free video chat, free texting, free sending photos and attachments and things like that. I'm talking about apps like WhatsApp, Telegram. Those are really incredibly good. They're completely free. I don't really know how they generate income, but I've used them for years, and they're really simple to load onto your phone. And once you get used to those, you're going to use them all the time. Completely free to have video chats with your friends all over the world. It's fantastic. Now, another thing to look into in advance is visas, because every country is going to have different requirements. And some of the countries, it's going to be easier to apply for the visa if you're in your home country when you apply for it. It might even be required. And with other countries, it's much easier or required to do it when you're in that country. So if you're choosing a country where it's beneficial to do it in your original home country, make sure you know that before you move so you don't get there and say, I'm ready to start my new life, and find out you've got to go back home to start your visa process. And I don't know if some of you want to get a second passport. A lot of people don't even know you can do that. People think you've got to give up your US citizenship to get a passport to another country and be a citizen there as well. But in almost every case, you can do it. There's a lot of countries that give you really not a very difficult path to getting that second passport. The usual requirement is just having a long-term visa and residing there for a certain period of time. But the benefits for that can be tremendous for some of these countries. By having a passport, becoming a citizen, you never need to worry about the visa process again, which is kind of a yearly headache for most of us. And you might qualify for free healthcare within the country. Sometimes, if it's an EU country, you can even travel in all the other countries throughout the EU region without getting a visa. And quite often you're eligible for their healthcare while you're visiting there as well. the benefits can really be tremendous. What about employment? We haven't talked about that yet. Now, a lot of you are probably retired watching this, so you're not worried about it, but some of you might be younger or you still need an income. And the problem is that a lot of these countries, like Thailand, for the most part, don't let you work in country unless you're teaching English, for example, or you've got a certain kind of visa that lets you work. But many countries restrict that. So you might need to be looking at remote employment. And luckily, there's a lot of ways that you can make a living on your computer. I admit I'm one of them because I'm an attorney and I'm still a working attorney. I do it part-time, but I love my job. So I do my entire law practice digitally. That may sound impossible, but it's actually quite easy. I talk to my clients by video. I make my court appearances by video. And you can do that kind of thing too. I did a video on remote international jobs and actually geared kind of just towards seniors. So you might want to check that out. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is kind of a caution. Thinking about going overseas is really exciting. And for me, maybe because I've traveled my whole life, the transition to living in Thailand was exciting. It was fun. I really didn't have any problems. But for some of you, it might not be the case. It might be a huge culture shock to move to a country where not everybody speaks your language. In fact, outside of kind of the touristy areas, there might be no one that speaks your language. So that's something you want to factor in to where you're moving to. For example, in Thailand, a lot of people don't speak English here outside of kind of the tourist regions. If that's a big concern for you, but you want to be in Southeast Asia, well, maybe the Philippines is a better place for you because basically everybody speaks English there. Or Malaysia, more people speak English than they do in Thailand. And another caution I'll give you, something else to think about, is making the move. I mean, physically, what do you do with all your stuff? I mean, you've got a house full of things, maybe furniture and whatever. Don't make the mistake of shipping all that stuff overseas. That's a huge expense, and it's just really so much trouble. You can buy about everything you need overseas, and you can buy certain things, secondhand as well. I mean, they've got Facebook Marketplace and services like that here too, where you can find secondhand things if you want. And quite often new things are less expensive than they would be in the US. But don't rush and just sell everything you've got until you're really sure that it's the right thing for you. Because again, it's not for everybody. Have a backup plan. Have enough money in your bank account that you can come back home and be resettled just in case it doesn't work out for you. But that has a little bit of a negative ring to it, and I don't want to end on that tone. For most of us, moving overseas has been the best thing that we've ever done. It's not just a more affordable life, it's a more exciting life, it's a more satisfying life. And I think just having an adventure in our latter years is really quite exhilarating. It gives you just kind of a whole new sense of invigoration and restarting instead of the same old in your home country. So for me, it's worked out great. I hope that if you choose this path, it works out great for you. I hope you subscribe to my channel because I've got some new videos coming up specifically kind of related to this issue, but really down to some nuts and bolts. So please subscribe so you can be aware of those videos. Hey, thanks for watching. Until I see you again, safe travels.